Ryan, can we talk alone? David asked. Ryan sighed and motioned for him to move to the table. They both sat down. Ryan was not interested in what he was about to say, but he did not want to be rude. I understand you didn't like it all, but please come to the party with me only once, David said. You don't understand. I promise I won't bother you again. David cut her off. I. Ryan was still thinking when she felt him holding her hands. She looked at him with her wide eyes and tried to get her hands free, but his grip tightened instinctively around her hands. Please don't refuse. Ryan was feeling really uneasy. Her tongue darted out to wet her lips, and she glanced nervously around the cafe and back at him. Suddenly, the door of the cafe opened loudly, which caught everyone's attention. They found Jungkook standing there, and one can tell by looking at his face that he will definitely kill someone today. Jungkook's eye went to Ryan and then to the hands that were in David's grip. Jungkook clenched his jaw, his veins were popping out of his neck, and without warning, he marched towards David and punched him. David immediately fell down from his chair. Ryan gasped and instantly got up from her seat, covering her mouth with her hand. Jungkook did not stop there. He knelt down and started punching him. Everyone in the cafe was shocked. Some even started recording the scene. Jennifer and Anna also came to Ryan. I fucking told you to stay away from her, said Jungkook and drove his fist down to David's curves, only to mash his knuckle on the belt buckle David was wearing. Jungkook curled his hand into a fist and aimed for the front of David's nose. His fist reached the bridge of his nose. His blood splattered on the floor. David struck Jungkook in the shoulder with a hard fist. Jungkook fell backward with a loud thud. David immediately jumped on top of Jungkook and punched him. But Jungkook was so out of his mind by that time. He punched David hard in the face and pushed him away. Jungkook stood up, grabbed David by the collar, threw him on the table, and the table broke in the half. Groaning from the impact, David tried to crawl back. Jungkook leaned down and grasped him by the throat. He raised the dazed David up with both hands, holding him mid-air as David flailed at Jungkook, fighting to keep his life. Ryan couldn't see him killing anyone with such cruelty, so she stepped forward and grabbed Jungkook's arm, with which she was grabbing David's neck. Rolling through gritted teeth, Jungkook threw David on the floor and shoved Ryan back. She stumbled, but she kept her balance. David was half conscious, bleeding from his nose due to excessive beating. Her eyes flashed angrily and she stepped forward, reaching for Jungkook. What do you think you are doing? Ryan shouted angrily at Jungkook. It should be me who asked you that. What the fuck are you doing? Jungkook stood in front of her and shouted just above her face. She took a step backward and met his gaze angrily. Why did you hit him? Ryan asked, controlling her anger. I told you to stay away from him. Jungkook stared at her, blood pumping angrily in his throat. And why should I listen to you? I can do whatever the hell I want, Ryan shouted. Jungkook didn't say anything and just kept looking at her. His nose and knuckle were also bleeding. They were both looking into each other's eyes with the same level of intensity. You know what? After a few seconds, Jungkook broke the silence. Do whatever you want. I don't care anymore, he said and walked out of the cafe. Ryan looked at David, who had fainted. She knelt down and checked his pulse. Jenny, please call an ambulance. Jennifer nodded and hurried to call an ambulance. Jungkook sat in his car and called his men. Yes, boss. You don't have to follow her anymore. With that, he hung up. He looked towards the cafe with his jaw clenched. His face was livid, the veins standing out on his neck. From now on, I won't try to save you from that fucker. Ryan was sitting by David's bed. The doctor said he would wake up in a few minutes. Uh. Ryan looked at David, who was now waking up. Are you alright? Should I call the doctor? Ryan said anxiously. David tried to get up. Ryan stepped forward and lifted him up in bed so that his head would be on top. Then she turned him to the side and used a pillow to place it under the draw seat on his back. Then she lifted the foot of the bed so that it could bend his knees. She used the pillow to place under his head and arms for comfort. I am fine, don't worry. She glanced at him. He was eyeing her, a smile twisting his lips. I'm sorry it all happened because of me. She had a doleful look on her face. Hey, no need to apologize. It wasn't your fault, David said. Her lips thinned to a straight line. Ryan, I want to ask you something. David said again. She just nodded and motioned for him to say whatever he wanted. The blue eyes melted with warmth and a smile twisted his lips in an attractive way. Her mouth went dry and she involuntarily licked her lip. His gaze came back to her face, pressing from her eyes to her lips. Will you be my girlfriend? Do you know what you are asking, Mr. William? Ryan asked, looking at him quizzically. I like you from the moment I first saw you, Ryan. Ryan got up from the stool by the bed. David looked at her questioningly. You know Mr. William? She paused and then looked into his eyes. I firmly believe that people do nothing without any reason. If you want me to be your girlfriend, you need something from me in return. And do not dare to say that you like me or love me, because reading people's eyes is my specialty. And I have always seen lust in your eyes, Ryan said. He stared at her, slack jaw. He never expected her to be so smart. He wanted to take her to the party to fuck her and then kill her. But Jungkook messed everything up. But he did not know that. This sharp-witted girl knew his intention from the very beginning. I was not saying anything to you because you had not crossed your limits. But now that you had crossed it, I would advise you to stay away from me. Otherwise, the consequences will be worse. She said with a dark look on her face. Ryan stood there for a few seconds, thinking he would say something, but he didn't. Mr. William, never dared to cross my path again, he said, turning and walking towards the door. David let out a sinister chuckle as he left the room. So, you are a hard nut to crack, huh? Ryan came out of the hospital and was looking for a taxi when she heard the horn. She looked to the other side of the road and saw Jennifer standing there waving at her. Ryan crossed the road and found Taeyang in the driver's seat. Come on, we will drop you off at home. Ryan sighed and sat down in the back seat. Jennifer climbed into the passenger seat and Taeyang started the car. It had been 10 minutes since their journey, and there was complete silence in the car when Taeyang thought of breaking it. Jennifer told me everything that happened in the cafe. Ryan looked at Jennifer, who was already looking at her, with a sorry look plastered on her face. Jungkook was trying to protect you. You didn't know anything about David. You should stay away from him. I knew his intention from the beginning, but I didn't say anything to him because he stayed within his limits. But now I have made it clear to him to stay away from me, said Ryan looking out of the window. You did the right things, Ryan, said Jennifer. Soon they were in front of Ryan's house. She told them to come in, but Jennifer said she should go and rest because it was a very tiring day for her and they did not want to disturb her. This is my card. Save the number written on it in your mobile. If you ever need any help, feel free to call me. Taeyang extended his card to Ryan, who was in the back seat. You can think of me as your older brother, he said, smiling. Thank you. Ryan took the card from his hand and got out of the car. She looked at them and waved. Taeyang and Jennifer smiled, waved their hands at her, and soon left. Ryan opened the door and stepped inside her house. It was raining heavily at night. Jungkook was sitting in front of the glass window, watching the rain with a bottle of beer in his hand. He never liked rain, but today he was enjoying it. He was feeling really lonely. His room was enveloped with darkness. He did not even bother to turn on the light in the room. His room was as dark as his life. Today he felt pain in his heart when Ryan shouted at him for the compatible man David. This was the first time in his life that he was doing something good for someone without any ill intentions. But today he has come to know that no matter how hard the goodness tries, evil always wins. She was right. Why would she listen to me? Who am I to her? He took a sip of beer and closed his eyes. The clouds were thundering loudly. She will come to me of her own free will. His eyes opened with a jerk when David's were echoed in his head again. He threw the bottle on the floor. The bottle broke and the glass shattered everywhere. Fuck you, David. Strange noises disturbed Ryan's sleep, and she woke up. She looked at the clock on the side table. It was 4 o'clock in the morning and it was still raining outside. It is common here that the rain does not stop for many days. She came out of her room. She could still hear voices. She guessed the sound were coming from the kitchen, so she went there. As she approached the kitchen, the sound stopped. She pressed the button to turn on the light, but the light did not work. Maybe power outage, she thought, and turned to go back to her room. to get her mobile. She was about to enter a room when she heard the sound of the glass shattering. She immediately turned around but found nothing. She went to the kitchen and saw that the window was broken. She felt the presence of someone behind her, and when she turned, someone put a handkerchief over her face. She tried to hold her breath, but could not do so for long, and sniffed the chemical. Soon she began to feel numb, and her body sank into the darkness. Morning. Good morning, Anna. Jimin greeted as he entered the cafe. Where were you? You did not even answer my calls. Anna began to complain. Sorry, baby. I was busy. But today I am free for you, he said with a smile which made Anna forget her anger. Where is Payan? Jimin looked around to find her. She has not come today. I have been calling her since morning, but she is not answering my call. If for some reason she can't come to the cafe, then she inform me first. But today, she didn't call me or text me, Anna said anxiously. It's raining. I don't think she will go anywhere in this weather. Jimin muttered to himself. What? Anna looked at him confused. Nothing. I will go and check if she is okay. Okay, and let me know as soon as you meet her, Anna said. Okay. Jimin left the cafe immediately. Jimin knew what happened in the cafe yesterday, and now Ryan is not answering the call, nor has she come. Everything is making him feel that something is wrong. Jimin reached her house. He got out of the car and walked towards the main door. It was raining hard, and he was almost drenched. He rang the bell several times but got no answer. He went to the back of the house to look for the back door but found a broken window. He entered the house through the window. He looked at the kitchen where the piece of glass was shattered. He headed for the living room and found everything in its place. He saw the open door of the room and went inside. He looked at the cell phone on the bedside table and quickly recognized that it belonged to Ryan. But the question was, where is she? He searched everywhere but could not find her. It did not take long for him to put two or two together. He quickly pulled his cell phone out of his pocket and called Jungkook. He did not answer the call, so he called again. This time, Jungkook answered the call with a group voice. What? Ryan is missing. Ryan slowly opened her eyes, blinking a few times to get rid of the blurriness. Her head was itching like hell. She tried to move, but something was restraining her movement. She looked at her hands that were tied to the bedpost. She looked around anxiously, remembering last night's incident of how someone had broken into her house and then kidnapped her. The door creaked open and the first nightmare came in. There was a devilish smile on his face. He was proud to see her completely at his misery. Now he can do whatever he wants with her. Let me go. Ryan jerked her hand to free herself from the rope. And why should I do that? With the predatory step, he moved towards the bed and stopped at the foot of the bed. Tears welled up in Ryan's eyes. She did not even know what he was going to do with her now. She is alone with him. He can harm her in any way. David, please let me go. She pleaded. David walked towards the window and looked outside. It will be a lot of fun to have sex on a rainy day. His word came out in a raspy voice as he continued looking outside. Terror took place in her heart at David's words. He turned and leaned against the window, his arm crossing over his chest. His eyes were fixed on her small trembling form. But it would have been more amazing if it had been night. She shot a disgusted look at David. I wanted to fuck you the moment my men brought you here, but you were unconscious, and it took you a lot of art to regain consciousness. Cold fear swelled through her. Please don't do that. Please let me go. Ryan pleaded with tears streaming down her cheeks. No one will be able to find you, because I have brought you away from the city. Here, I will fuck you for a few days, and then bury you alive here and go back. It bounced around her head, first in disbelief, then in shock, and finally in anger. No! You can't do that! She gave him a stern look that made him smile. I will do it, and nothing can stop me now. I have wasted a lot of my time. Now it is the time to have some pleasure, he said and started walking to the violin. No, no, please stop. She crawled back, but David held her ankle and yanked her down underneath him. No, stop! She screamed, which ached David and he slapped her in the face, causing her head to tilt. Stop screaming! He shouted at her, fury on his face. David grabbed her by the jaw and leaned closer to her face. I can't wait anymore. By saying that, he slammed his legs on hers. Ryan started to struggle, which made David angry. He broke the kiss and slapped her again. Stop struggling! His cold rage terrified her. Tears burned her eyes and her lower lip trembled. I will make you scream my name in pleasure, he said, tearing off her shirt. Please stop! She screamed again. David started kissing her neck. Ryan was crying and screaming, but he turned deaf ears to her scream. Stop! David looked at her face with a clenched jaw. Stop it! She shouted, her face contorted with rage, and her eyes blackened. She felt the rage tearing at her lungs, plucking at her nerves until she wanted to twist David's neck off. I think you want it rough. David tore her shirt off completely and covered her mouth with it. Ryan struggled a lot, but unfortunately, it was all in vain. She couldn't even scream anymore. David started opening his shirt's button, his lustful gaze roaming over her body. He saw how her chest was falling up and down with each breath. She was trembling badly. He was already hard as rock, seeing her completely at his misery on the bed. But he didn't hurry and took his moment to enjoy every inch of her body. He took off his shirt and threw it in a corner of the room and came closer to her again. Ryan was crying uncontrollably and jerking her hands to free herself. She wanted to scream but couldn't. She was praying to God to save her, and it was as if God had heard her prayers, because after a few minutes she heard a knock on the door. David did not stop and kept kissing her when another knock came. David groaned and pulled away from her neck. I told you to not disturb me, he shouted, but there was no response from the other side. I swear I will kill the one who disturbed me. Ryan breathed a sigh of relief as he got up from her trembling body and headed for the door. As soon as the door opened, a punch landed on David's face and he fell to the floor. Ryan never thought she would be so happy to see Jungkook one day. Jungkook stood there, pointing his gun at David, who was lying on the floor without a shirt. Jungkook turned his eyes away from David and looked at Ryan, and for a moment showed some emotion, but before she could read his eyes, he again changed his expression to anger. Four more men entered the room. Ryan felt energy and tried to hide himself from their eyes. Jungkook put the gun in his back pocket and started walking towards Ryan. His bodyguard approached David and dragged him out. Jungkook looked at her face, which had slap marks on it. Her eyes were red from crying too much. He opened the cloth tied around her face and she started sobbing loudly. He then untied her hand. She immediately sat on the bed and tried to cover her chest with her hand. Jungkook quickly took off his raincoat and threw it towards her. Put it on, he said, and started walking out of the room. Ryan quickly put on his raincoat and got out of the bed and ran after him. She saw him walking out of the front door. She came out of the house with quick steps. It was raining, but she did not care and ran towards Jungkook, who was making his way to the car. Jungkook! She called his name, but he did not stop. She ran quickly and approached him. She grabbed his arm and turned him around. How did you find me? Ryan asked in utter confusion, not understanding how Jungkook found out David had abducted her and where she was being kept. Jungkook looked sternly at her, and an expression of anger suddenly came over to his face. I told you to stay away from him. Did you obey me? Jungkook roared onto her face, clutching his hands. Her expression revealed surprise for a brief moment, and then her eyes flashed with anger. I never went after him. I told him to stay away from me, but he kidnapped me. You know what? Jungkook paused and ran his hand over his face. They both were standing in the rain, but neither of them cared. You're just trouble, he said, gritting his teeth and pointing his index finger at her. The tears came in her eyes without warning. He felt heaviness sink to the pit of his stomach, and regret trickled through him. She brushed off the tears and said, So why did you come here and save this trouble? She deliberately emphasized the word trouble. Because I care about you, he said in a low voice, giving her an honest answer. Why do you care about me? Her question silenced him. His silence infuriated her, and she shouted, Why do you care about me? Her behavior evoked the beast inside him, and he grabbed her shoulder, pulling her roughly against himself. Can't you see why I do? The tick in his jaw belied how tightly his teeth were clamped. His eyes were looking at her so deeply. She met his angry gaze and mustered all the courage she could find. No, I can't see anything, she said, staring at him blankly. When she continued to stare at him blankly, he shook his head in disbelief as fury rose once more, and he pushed her away roughly. Her foot slipped and she fell to the ground. She lifted her head to glare at him, but his next word caught her off guard.
Said I love you, damn it!